May 2011. Midnight. Outside the window of a lavish five-star hotel, the blue and red lights of a patrol car cast a nervous glow on the face of a man named Dan Saunders. His hands won't stop shaking. Just 4 months ago, Dan was a broke bartender in a sleepy town in Australia, invisible to the world. Now, he's a fugitive millionaire. His crime? He found a glitch. Not a small bug, but the digital equivalent of a cheat code to reality. An infinite money hack. Every night at exactly 1 a.m., the banking system would go blind, and Dan would hack it, not with complex code, but with simple timing. He stole a staggering $1.6 million cash, private jets to Bali, champagne that cost more than a car, throwing money like confetti. But tonight, the sirens are real. They're getting closer. The question isn't if they're coming for him, but how a regular guy, a bartender, managed to exploit the most rigid, regulated system in the world to withdraw infinite cash. And how long until the bill for that phantom money finally comes due? This is the story of Dan Saunders, the man who found the ATM loophole, and what this terrifying lapse reveals about our own digital security. You're watching The Digital Sleuth, and this is a cybercrime documentary unlike any other. To understand the scale of Dan's caper, we have to go back 4 months. February 2011, Wangaratta, Australia. It was a warm night, and Dan was just finishing his shift. 29 years old, low on cash, and perhaps a little too buzzed from the last call. He needed cab fare. He stumbles to a nearby ATM. The clock strikes midnight as he inserts his worn bank card. He was hoping for maybe $20. Instead, the screen flashes a strange error. Balance unavailable at this time. Now, most people would shrug and walk away. But Dan's mind, perhaps sharpened by the alcohol, caught a flicker. He swore he saw his actual, meager balance, $342. Then it was gone. Dan knew his savings account was empty. But this wasn't the usual insufficient funds rejection. This was a system hiccup, and this is where the genius, or perhaps the criminal intent, was born. Dan didn't use a phishing attack or malware like most cybercriminals. He didn't need to break into the bank's servers via the dark web. His attack was a simple timing vulnerability. He gambled on the system being asleep. He attempted a stupid, simple thing. Transferred $200 from his credit account to his empty savings account. The machine spat out his card. Transaction canceled. No receipt. But Dan was persistent. He slid the card back in, and this time, he selected withdraw $200 from the very same savings account he knew was empty. The machine whirred, clicked, and then, impossibly, it dispensed $200 cash. Dan's jaw dropped. The bills were real. He was staring at free money. He glanced up at the blinking security camera. No alarms, just the hum of the ATM. He had just stumbled into a financial blind spot. The following morning, the cash was real. But his bank balance revealed the truth. His savings account was now $200 in the negative. The bank hadn't called. The world hadn't ended. This is the crucial part that separates Dan's crime from a simple overdraft. The National Australia Bank, like many large institutions, uses a technique called batch processing or deferred posting for certain overnight transactions. Imagine it like this. Everything is verified in real time during the day. If you don't have the money, the transaction fails immediately. But between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., the system goes into a kind of low-power mode to balance the books from the previous day. Crucially, the ATM terminal and the bank's main ledger temporarily stop communicating perfectly. Dan figured out that if he made a huge transfer, say $4,000, from his non-existent credit limit to his empty savings account during this window, the ATM would briefly be tricked. The machine saw the temporary credit, the phantom funds, and allowed the withdrawal of the physical cash. The next morning, when the main ledger finally woke up, it saw the bogus $4,000 transfer and instantly rejected it. But by then, the real cash was already in Dan's pocket. He only had to make sure the next night's phantom transfer was big enough to cover the negative balance of the previous day. It was a digital yo-yo, a simple timing attack that exploited the delay between transaction authorization and final settlement. It was the financial version of finding an unlocked back door while the security guard was on break. It was terrifyingly simple. Within a few weeks, Dan was doing transfers of $16,000. He walked into his local branch, checked his balance, and, on paper, he was a millionaire. 7 figures, conjured from thin air. So began the wildest 5 months of Dan Saunders' life. He blew through an estimated $1.6 million. This wasn't just about paying bills. This was about living a life stolen from a movie montage, private jets to Bali, booking entire floors of five-star hotels, tossing $100 tips like confetti at nightclubs where the champagne tab alone could buy a new car. Dan's crime was highly localized, but the mechanics echo the largest financial cybercrimes we see today. Consider the Carbanak gang. They didn't steal money from customers, but hacked the banks themselves, adjusting balances and controlling ATMs to spit out cash at specific times, totaling over $1 billion globally. Dan did the same thing, but as a solo act, exploiting a publicly accessible glitch. His family was told he was a rising star in crypto or real estate. Everyone believed the lie, because everyone wants to believe in easy money. He found the addiction wasn't just the cash, it was the power. He paid off friends' tuition debts and student loans. For a while, he was the local legend, the philanthropist with the black card. But the facade was crumbling. The constant high-roller lifestyle was a form of self-sabotage. His friend Jake saw the truth. One night, Jake grabbed his arm. "I know what you're doing, mate. You're going to prison." Dan was living a nightmare. He Googled his name, plus arrest and fraud every morning. He started having panic attacks. The bank's fraud department called occasionally, but only to confirm, "Did you spend $8,000 at a luxury hotel?" "Yes, that was me," Dan would whisper. "All right, no worries, just checking." The absurdity was suffocating. The bank, in its desperate attempt to maintain an image of security and avoid negative press, was enabling the crime. By late spring 2011, Dan was exhausted, paranoid, and consumed by guilt. He finally hit the brakes, skipping his midnight ritual. Instantly, his account plummeted into the negative millions. The next day, he called his bank manager, trying to confess. The manager cut him off. "Sir, it's a police matter now. We can't discuss this." But the police didn't come. Days turned into weeks, then 2 agonizing years. The bank was silently building an ironclad case. They wanted to make sure they got him for every single penny. The truth is, sometimes the silence after a crime is more terrifying than the immediate sirens. Finally, in 2013, unable to live with the uncertainty, Dan forced the issue. He contacted a major newspaper and spilled his entire story on national TV, essentially daring the authorities to act. This forced the bank's hand. Dan was charged and ultimately served 1 year in prison. He paid for the crime, but the story left an indelible mark on the world of cybersecurity. The story of Dan Saunders is a cautionary tale, but it's also an important lesson in digital security. If a simple bartender can find a loophole in the largest financial institutions, what digital vulnerabilities do you have? Here is the Digital Sleuth's advice on how to prevent becoming a victim of more sophisticated cybercrime, documentary-worthy threats. First, the phantom money check. Always review your bank statements and credit reports, not just for transactions, but for unexplained transfers or newly opened accounts. Scammers running major dark web scams often use synthetic identities to open drop accounts to siphon money into. Report any unexpected movement immediately. Next, phishing and Vishing Defense. Dan used the system itself, but most modern attacks, like major phishing attacks, target you. Never click on links in emails, and never give out personal details over the phone, even if the caller ID looks legitimate. A technique called vishing. If the bank calls, hang up and call back using the number on your official bank card. Third, multi-factor authentication, MFA. This is your best defense against having your identity stolen and being used in financial fraud. Enable MFA on every financial and email account. Even if a hacker steals your password, they can't get in without your physical phone. Finally, credit freezes. If you are truly worried about financial fraud mechanics, place a credit freeze with the 3 major credit bureaus. This prevents identity thieves from opening new lines of credit in your name, stopping potential damage before it starts. Dan Saunders traded $1.6 million for a one-way ticket to prison and a lifetime of infamy. He was a cautionary tale proving that free money is never free. It always comes with a price. The cost of your freedom and the haunting, silent dread that the bill will arrive any minute. What would you have done if you found the infinite money glitch? Let me know in the comments below. If you want more deep dives into the dark corners of the web and the mechanics of financial fraud, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the Digital Sleuth. We'll see you next time. Stay safe out there, digitally and financially.